That live button has been clicked. YouTube is successfully receiving our content. And it now says live, but it says an error occurred in my browser, but I'm going to assume that that still means we're live. I'm just going to briefly check really quick. Oh. Something's going on. It says we're live, but something's going on with my Chrome browser. Let me see if I can open it in Edge. Every time I open it in Chrome, it's like, sorry, there's a problem or whatever. An error occurred. Can you guys open it up?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay. For some reason in my browser, it's both on Edge browser and on Chrome. It's not working, but nevertheless, we are live, so it doesn't really matter if I see it, right? It matters if everyone else sees it. So, welcome everyone to another edition of the 4GwQPodcast. This is indeed episode number 182 for September 12th, 2018, on a Wednesday this week because of some scheduling obligations that I have to celebrate some birthdays of family. So, we're doing it a little bit early, which is never a bad thing necessarily. So we got the usual cast of characters here with us this evening, afternoon, whatever you want to call it. Joining us for his 182nd straight time, it is indeed ZBCI Assassin. What's going on, bud?
Hi.
And of course, unwavering from that usual monotone, seriously interested intro. We wouldn't ask for anything more, of course. Oh. Last but not least, we have Italian Clowns with us, and I'm not sure if he can respond to the intro because he's got a ton of family over unexpectedly, but he's still doing the podcast. What's going on? Hi guys, Clowns, and I have a ton of family over. Okay, great. But he will be joining us, here and there to hit on these topics this week. We got quite a few. Not quite a few. We have quite little to talk about in terms of number of topics, but we have quite a bit to talk about, I should say, because there's a few betas going on. One going on right now, but there was one that just happened, and we'll talk about those two games, Battlefield 5 and Call of Duty Blackout. We'll talk about those two things in detail, and we'll measure up how DICE has been handling Battlefield's beta and how Treyarch has been handling Call of Duty's, and how it's been different, and how certainly DICE hasn't been doing itself any favors, in my opinion. But we'll get the opinion of the panel here in just a little bit. Of course, we'll talk about Spider-Man as well, because Spider-Man is now out finally, and Assassin has done that platinum, gotten that platinum on it. Of course, we'll get his opinion, we'll get Clown's opinion, and I'll talk about it for a little bit, even though I've only played like 4 hours maybe, if I'm being generous. But had to play that beta, that Battlefield beta. Couldn't give up on that. But so before we get into the topics, let's just shout out the Inner Circle Network as we do every week. We are an affiliate of theirs, so want to give them a great shout out for taking us on as an affiliate podcast. There are a few other affiliate podcasts that you should definitely check out, and you can go to the link in the description below in order to check those out, along with their their founding podcasts, if you will, the ones that are part of their inner circle already, not affiliates, but ones that they kind of created and have garnered. So quite a bit of content there to absorb. If you don't like listening to podcasts, is also, I don't know why you'd be listening to this right now if you didn't like listening to podcasts, but if you don't, and this is the only podcast you listen to, there's also written material that Clowns contributes to on a fairly regular basis, so you can go over there. Link is in the description below. All right, Assassin, let's start with this, because I know you've been playing the hell out of this game, and this isn't really necessarily the controversial part of this podcast, and I know controversy sells, but we got to open with something, and I figured that Spider-Man would be it. Now, Spider-Man came out last week, released on Friday. I picked my copy up Friday. Assassin and Clowns had it digitally, so They were able to play right away. I had to wait a little bit until after work, but got a chance to play, 4 or 5 hours or whatever. But Assassin's really the one we want the opinions from because he's the guy who's already platinumed the game, so 100% completion in terms of the PlayStation trophies, if you're not familiar. So yeah, Assassin, take it away, bud. What did you think of the game? And since you've essentially fully completed it, I guess you can really give your final thoughts. I'm saying our impressions so far, but honestly, I mean, your thoughts are probably like final at this point, no?
Yeah, I thought overall the game was excellent. It was a lot better than I was expecting. I know if you remember, I think it was at E3, I said I wasn't really looking forward to it. And I'm glad that it exceeded my expectations by a lot, actually. I thought the combat mechanics, while I had a problem getting used to them because it plays somewhat similar to the Batman games, the Batman Arkham games, I should say. Once you got used to it and combined, your web powers and just your punches and stuff, like the combos you can create are just so good, and they can be a little OP at times to take out like huge groups if you combine certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the story was very, very, very good. I thought it were a lot better than any Spider-Man movie we've ever seen. What else? I've experienced a few bugs, like for instance,
who hasn't, right? Jesus, if you look on Twitter, it's like all the people are talking about is the friggin' bugs. Like, well, I mean, not the PlayStation people, but if you're asking, primarily the Xbox people, they're all pointing out the bugs, which is a shame, honestly, because this game is so good. But go ahead, sorry, continue.
I've experienced bugs in the areas where like you get them early on, but like the crimes that are going around the town, like you'll pop up and there's a red triangle, for certain things, and there would be times where like late in the game, you had to like attack a car, and then people would come out, and then they would get reinforcements. Well, those reinforcements would never show up, and you could complete that crime, and progress and down that off the district completion, which was annoying. I've had times where I knocked an enemy off the building, but he survived, and obviously, like I say multiple times, I'm colorblind, so when you hit the right stick, they show up red. Well, I can't see them. And you hear like very quietly, like you hear him like, "I see Spider-Man." I'm like, "Great." Where are you? And like I don't know if that's like really a bug, but like I mean there's times like where it is actually a bug where you knock them off a huge skyscraper and they're alive at the bottom, and or there's possible that they're in the wall, like just hear them but I can't find them, so that was annoying. There was some, like, I don't want to get in spoiler territory because
please don't, because you're
I don't want to ruin
usually terrible with that. So
like there was this type of gun in the game, like I don't know if it was just balanced, but like if you got surrounded and they shoot you, like trying to dodge, you just couldn't, and you were dead even though it should have worked. But I mean, yeah. For the story, not to like get in spoiler territory again. Like, I'm glad like the game wasn't just solely on Spider-Man. Like you saw, the other stuff that could, you being Spider-Man. Like, so Peter Parker's life, his relationships between his like aunt or his girlfriends or those other things that you're just, the game's not just on Spider-Man. And I think that made it a lot better.
Yeah, well, I mean, people were kind of bitching about that, right? I mean, initially when people were playing, they were like, "Oh, I'm done playing as Mary Jane. Like, I'm so used to the, myriad of powers that the the invincibility you almost feel being so strong in combat, and the traversal like prowess, if you will, of being able to swing literally anywhere on such a nice, beautiful open map. And then you're playing as Mary Jane, and it's like wah wah. You know, I haven't gotten that far yet, but from what I've heard, you know, all I've heard essentially from everyone except you is bitching about it. Can you see
those parts, like, while like I can see why people don't like them, I'd rather have, you know, you have the perspective of Mary Jane and what's going on there than having her call, you know, Spider-Man and have like a chat, you know, like sometimes you can tone those things out, and I'd rather see, you know, big parts of the story through her eyes than through a phone call.
Yeah. No, I listen, to people who complain about that, it's like, did you expect Mary Jane to have the powers of Batman? Like, you know, people are expecting like GTA, whereas in GTA, like, you go from one character to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's all intertwined in the story. This is kind of like almost like the same thing, except in GTA, obviously, one's not a superhero and one's not a woman. It's like, okay, you know, they're closer in terms of what to expect. Now, in this game, I think you go into it knowing, you know, Spider-Man is a friggin' superhero and Mary Jane is a commoner. You're obviously not going to get that kind of experience. So when I saw the bitching, it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, Clowns has to back out, and now we're gonna see Assassin's huge forehead here on the stream. But it's like, how could you you know, compare something like GTA? Because I saw people doing that on Twitter. It's like, oh, this isn't like GTA character switching. It's so much more boring. And I'm just like, how can you go into it expecting that? Like, this is valuable story experience, but I feel like people are more into these games these days I'm not hearing anything about the story other than from you, Assassin. Like, I feel like I'm hearing about the graphics, I'm hearing about the bugs, and I'm hearing about the gameplay, and that's it. Like, no one's talking, oh, this game has a good story, you know?
Yeah. I'm surprised people aren't saying, like, repetitive either, because the game is very repetitive with the not, you know, side missions, but like all the stuff you do, like you do certain, you know, there's X amount of crimes in each district. There's, you know, other things that each district has, like one or two of them, and pretty much the same. And like it's very repetitive at certain points of the game.
I think people are on different sides of that coin, actually, because I think, now I know Clowns is back, so I want him to get in on this, and I think Clowns has been one that's been saying that it is kind of it gets repetitive in sections here and there. But then I see people on Twitter. Most recently, I just saw a tweet from Magic Mike on Twitter that was like, oh, I have it right here. He says, this is exactly what he said 5 minutes ago. I know Spider-Man is getting a new game plus in the future, but the lack of mission replay is very disheartening. Hopefully they add mission replay along with new game plus. Would love to play the final mission again without having to play everything else before it. Okay, well, the final mission, yeah, whatever. But like, some people would like to do the same thing over and over and over, and some people are just like, you know, this is starting to get repetitive. No, Clowns, am I right? You were one of the ones that was saying that it was kind of getting repetitive, or?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
I think Spider-Man is, you know, I love the game. Don't get me wrong. I think it's an excellent game. It's definitely worth the $60 or whatever you pay for it. $79 for deluxe. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do, but a lot of the things that you do definitely get repetitive, like taking out the bad guys called the thugs or the demons, etc., etc. It's like the same kind of concept over and over and over. It's like, why not make a variety of like 20 different scenarios for each thug situation or each demon situation, so that you could cycle through like all those instead of having to like maybe do two bomb diffuses in a row, or, you know, two carjackings or whatever, the car chase in a row. I mean, it definitely gets repetitive there, and I think people are overlooking that. It's a con to the game.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we talked last week about, now obviously we hadn't played the game, but just to, you know, we talked about it in terms of like hype level and whether or not, you know, we were surprised about the meta not being like in the 90s for a game like this. And I think that's definitely one thing from after playing the game. I think that's definitely one thing that would keep it out of the 90s range, in my opinion. is the fact that a lot of stuff is extremely repetitive. And how many times can you, like, you know, for me personally, I know Assassin's gonna argue this, but how many times can you, like, swing around and attack, like, a car, like, fleeing with enemies in it, and have to, like, choose the right side of the car in a bash square? Like, how many times can you do that before it's like, okay, great, like, awesome, you know? Or how many times can you, like, land and find somebody robbing a business and, like, clear that out before you're just like, oh, okay, great, you know?
There's a good way to look at this. A lot of people used to complain about Telltale being so repetitive, right? So imagine doing the same scene from Telltale 10 times in a row. First, maybe 5 minute scene 10 times in a row, over and over and over and over. And that's what, like, these missions are. These repetitive thugs, repetitive demons. Even some of the side missions get repetitive too. I mean, they're just trying to do filler content, and I get it, but they could have expanded the story a lot more than just all these side missions.
Mm-hmm. Assassin, you got any thoughts on that? Now, I know you're going to be on the other side, but...
Well, like, I get, like, a lot of that stuff's repetitive. Like, later in the game, like, not going to spoil anything. Like,
oh my god, you better watch out, dude.
Those thugs do different things. So, like, you know, there's going to be a different variation of, like, you know, the thug stole a car, you know, get them. Like, there'll be a different variation of that. But then, you know, you'll still see that variation a few times. And it's still annoying, but I feel like if the combat was terrible, it would make it so much worse than it really is.
Yeah,
I will say,
okay,
I think the comment is kind of good. There was one thing I wanted to touch on though, and I lost my track of thought. But go ahead, Inferno.
Yeah, no problem. No, just in response to that, I think that like, sometimes in gaming there are aspects of games that just, like, will lift it above certain criticism. Like, for this game, I think everyone's talking about the look of it. Obviously, it's a very beautiful game. The HDR is executed excellently. If people watch the Digital Foundry videos about the technology and the shading and all that stuff, you'll know that this is, you know, top notch in those areas, and you kind of overlook that stuff when you look at something so beautiful, and the combat is just so, like, rewarding and refined and action packed, you know, and really reward you for going at it either stealthily or going at it, you know, balls to the wall, as one would say. But you know,
okay, I remember now.
Yeah,
I remember what I was
good.
going to ask. And this may be, you know, Assassin might be able to answer this better than both you or me, Inferno. But the drone missions, Assassin, those drone missions where you got to get into the blue circle, and that's, like, you know, there's a couple of those, right? I can never pass the first set. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get the challenge 1, but I can't get the challenge silver or the gold. Is there any tricks to that?
Oh, what was it for? Where you had to chase the drone? Oh my god, yeah, that I remember doing those. Those were such a pain in the ass. You have to, if you want gold, you have to basically stay between, I think, the max is 60 meters away, and between like 40 and 60 meters you have to be in, and you have to go through every single blue circle very quickly when the drone lands to catch it and destroy it.
Yeah. Have you been able to do that?
Yeah, it was part
Wow.
of one of the trophies.
Wow. Oh, wow.
The one in Chinatown was the hardest, because if you screwed up on one part, you're done. The other ones, like, if you screwed up, you could, like, jump off of a building or quickly zip to a street light and then get back to it very quickly. But, like, if you don't have, like, certain powers, I think you get the ability, I think I told Inferno, where if you zip to, like, some on the ground and you push X right when you tap, you get a boost. If you have, like, that one, and then if you push X to keep the momentum going, like, it saves your life so much.
Yeah, so let's get into that for a second, because that's a nice little segue into, like, the skill tree / upgrade / leveling up system. Now, honestly, leading into this game, I thought the leveling up, like, obviously there are portions of the game where leveling up certain skills is gonna, you know, help you do things that may be more difficult, like what we just talked about. But like for me, I don't know. Like I'm looking at some of these skills, and other than the web slinger one, like I'm not really seeing. Well, at least how far I am. Obviously, later on, you know, your mileage may vary, but I feel like I have no reason to like upgrade anything but that slinging one. Like I feel like you can still kick ass without anything in the brawler one. You know, I feel like that. You know, I'm looking at an article right now on Polygon that I just pulled up really quick, and I'm not a huge fan of Polygon, but this is an interesting article they have about the skill tree, and they talk about the best Spider-Man skills, and like they list 4 that are like essential, right? And 3 out of the 4 are web slinger, and 1 is defender, and it's like borderline whether or not you should be there. Like it's the perfect dodge one. It's dodge window.
Okay, so that one is excellent to have, because like when you start, because like in the beginning you don't see many enemies on the screen, you get more, you know, more and more start showing up. So when you get that and you start like webbing their face or whatever, you can combine that. I think there's a skill tree in the left one for brawler that if they have a gun and you web their face, you can take them down instantly.
Okay.
Or there's ones in the where you can steal their guns. And I think later on, then you could throw them in their face, and then you can combine that where if you smash triangle, he spins a lot faster and does a lot more damage. Like, if you combine those with a bunch of the other perks you get or whatever,
yeah,
like you can do some serious damage, because the enemies do take a lot more hits to take down.
Yeah, it's like, this is the thing that kind of disappoints me about the skill tree, is that like I saw a skill tree like that. I saw rank up points. I saw, you know, getting tokens for doing certain things, like solving, like identifying certain materials in Doc Ock's lab. I guess that's a minor spoiler, but that's super early, so I don't care. So, you know, or for, you know, doing the you know, taking down the not the gangsters. What am I trying to say? The one where you like, yeah, the ones where you like stop the crimes or whatever. You get tokens for that. Like I saw all that, and I'm like, this is gonna be a really like customizable experience where like I can really shape the character to be the way I wanted to be. Like I kind of was almost expecting, maybe foolishly, to have it have been like Borderlands skill tree ish. You know, like in Borderlands, the different skill trees like affect you extremely deeply. Like you can make 3 separate characters of the same character in Borderlands and go down different skill trees, and like they'll play significantly differently. Whereas in Spider-Man, it's like if you don't go down the web slinger one, you're kind of a fool, in my opinion. At least from just like looking at it. I mean, not in practice necessarily, but like after playing a few hours of the game and seeing how much the web slinger stuff really helps you out in terms of, you know, traversal, in terms of like, you know, doing stuff like the air marshal thing where you can like focus air attacks and stuff like that. Like I feel like that stuff is so essential compared to the other two. It's like, after reading through, like, you know, at least for me, I went to and you can say if you did this differently, but I looked at the skill tree, and I'm looking at, you know, I'm going through each one before I start spending like my skill points. And if you pre-ordered, you got like 5 skill points or something. So you had a chance to spend a lot. But I looked at them all and kind of like evaluate which one I want to go through. And it's like, why would I go through anything other than the web slinger right now? You know, it's like,
like I get what you're saying. Like I was down that same path. I'm like, I don't know. Like I had these skill points, and like, do I really want this, you know, thing, or should I just go down that path like you keep on saying? But then like after you get it, and then you can combine them with other skills and web powers and stuff. Like it feels so much better. Like it's just hard to explain until you actually, you know, combine certain skills with each other, because they work. Because there's a bunch of web powers that work very well together, but then there's gonna be like, again, I guess it's not really a spoiler, but there's gonna be certain thugs, you know, like the big guys that, you know, you can't really, you know, you use your web powers a little bit, but they're, you know, they don't work well together.
Right.
All those web powers. So they had to combine certain attacks, and that's where you can start getting into those brawler skill trees, because then you can grab them and start spinning them around and throwing them, or using other attacks that you wouldn't have if you didn't invest in other skill trees.
Right. Right.
Or bigger groups of enemies. Like you could go the web slinger way, and or use your web powers and stuff, or you could combine your combat powers and just be a total badass.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's maybe the combination of powers is really the strong point of going down different skill trees, not necessarily them at face value, but just, forming your own combos and stuff. And then, yeah, of course, this game, the combat style, the one, popularized by the Arkham Batman games, it's just, it benefits you to do combos and to chain attacks and to, chain dodges and stuff like that. There is a huge benefit to that kind of gameplay. So, in this one, I think you can go fairly stealthy every once in a while too, which I do like. But, yeah, maybe that's what I have to get into more is chaining the abilities. But at face value, and I just look at them as they are and just take them individually. I'm just thinking wow, Web Slinger is really the one to go through before, or to start with the first few rows at least.
But yeah, especially in the beginning, Web Slinger is good. It's gonna benefit you most than anything, because you get 4 enemies at once to the end. I'm saying, that amount just triples.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, you don't necessarily need to web someone's face and knock them down instantly, because you could just destroy them instantly, pretty much, with how weak they are at the beginning.
Right. Yeah, so I just took a peek at the Metacritic score again. I know we did this last week, and it's still sitting at the same thing. It's still at 87. Only a few more scores came in since last week's episode, so about a week in to Spider-Man, we're still looking at the same score, which is a good score. I'm not going to knock an 87. I mean, it's not 90 or bust for me like a lot of people, but I mean, there are a lot of people bitching about that score. And, now that we're kind of wrapping up this topic, at least for now, until, New Game Plus comes out and the DLC for this comes out, for now, I think we'll just wrap this up by saying, Assassin, do you think 87 is a fair score for this, or would you kind of put it higher or lower? What do you?
I would have put it higher. I would have agreed with some of the 9 and 9.5s. I really enjoyed the game. The only thing that wouldn't give it a near or a perfect score was some of the repetitiveness and some of those bugs and the lack of colorblind options.
Mm-hmm.
If they got those fixed, and the repetitiveness they won't, but maybe in the DLC they're not as repetitive or whatnot, then I mean the game would just be one of probably the best Marvel superhero game.
Right. Clowns, any final words on this? Is the repetitiveness really holding you back on it, or you feel like you're gonna finish it, or what do you think?
I think I'm gonna finish it, but I'm kind of disappointed in Insomniac that you got to get gold in those drone things, and it's tied to a trophy, as Assassin said. I mean, I got a trophy for silver and bronze and completing it, but I didn't know there's another one for getting gold in those, and that kind of really pisses me off. It really does bother me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I understand that people like challenging things, but
well, once you get down the pathing down,
but how long do you have to practice that? You know what I mean? For something as stupid as that, it's kind of what the fuck,
well, yeah, because it took me a while to beat it. I ended up just looking up I think it was even from Polygon, they had a breakdown of the one that I had, the Chinatown one, I had a huge problem with, and step by step on how to do it, and it was just done.
Right.
You get done very easily.
So essentially, you went to a guide and cheated. All right, got it.
Sure.
Yeah, all right, nice.
I mean, it's not really cheating because I did it myself. I didn't, hit left, L2, R2, square, circle, whatever.
That's what you're gonna tell. Oh, okay, I gotcha. That's it. Okay, all right.
I mean, I did hit like right trigger and L2 and R2 at the same time because you needed those abilities.
Right. Yeah. I got you. You were the one that actually like physically, did it, but you had a little bit of suggestion from a third party, as we would say.
Yep. Yeah. Because it it is bullshit. Like if you don't have it down, because if you fuck up like once,
yeah,
like you can get away with it, but you fuck up twice, you have to restart.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's annoying.
Well, it sounds like you're gonna have to send that over to Clown so he doesn't get too pissed off at Insomniac and do anything crazy. But yeah, this is a game I'm gonna finish it. I'm definitely gonna finish it, and it sucks that there's just so much stuff that's kind of like piquing my interest right now. But that lull after the Blackout beta and before Forza comes out, I think I'm gonna get quite a few hours into it, and I'll probably be done with it by the end of the month, I would say.
Oh, there's one thing I want to say. And hopefully everybody's got to this point in the side things, and it's really not a real spoiler because I'm sure if Assassin found videos on this, it's out there already. So there's this dude in the side missions called Taskmaster or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did all those missions that Assassin talked about. Fight with him, and I lose. He beats me, and he's like, now you got to do all my missions all over again to face me. Ha 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 ha. Like, do I really have to go back and do every single mission, Assassin?
I don't know. I never lost to him, so.
Wow. Okay. What an asshole. Listen to this kid.
What do you want me to say? I didn't lose to him, so.
I figured in all your cheap videos that you looked up, you might have an answer.
Yeah, dude, he's got a strategy guide. It's right next to him.
One for a trophy and one for that stupid Chinatown.
Dude, this is where his small bedroom. This is where his small bedroom comes in the clutch because it's small enough that he can just have his laptop open right there with his strategy guides, and he can still be gaming.
Or I can just use my phone.
Or his phone. Yeah, that works too. Yeah, big enough screen, right?
Something like glued to the wall. It says Spider-Man cheats, and it's like SPID3R.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like lead speak. Yeah, exactly. A little bit of lead talk. Yeah, he probably went to Kinko's and printed it out and everything, bound the book.
I don't know what that is.
FedEx, whatever. FedEx, Kinko's, Staples. Probably got it bound for $10 or something like that. Just like the old days. I used to use those strategy guides when I was a kid. I thought those were pretty fun. I remember this is kind of off the beaten path, but whatever. I remember when Super Mario 64 came out, and I was playing through that game, and I was so stuck. And then Nintendo Power had this promotion where you could send away for the strategy guide, and I was like, all right, let me convince my parents to do this. And so I was able to do that, and my parents had to wait for it, and it was please allow 6 to 8 weeks. And I was like, I'll be done with the game by then. What the hell, right? So then the strategy guy comes in 6 weeks later, and I'm like, I've got 2 stars left in the game. It's not even worth going through the strategy guide, but I just flipped through it, and I was like, wow, this would have totally helped me out if I had this, but.
No, you got to remember, though, Assassin's Generation is probably what is a strategy guide?
Oh, my God.
Actually, I have a
YouTube.
Really?
Which games?
Do you have?
I have. I think I have one for Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Might have another one.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I can see him buying because of Star Wars. He probably bought because Luke's on the
cover.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Probably.
No,
Probably.
It wasn't Luke on the cover because he wasn't a Jedi before that game happened. So.
Well, whatever. Whoever, it doesn't matter. Did you really need that to get through that game? I mean, is that really a game?
No, I don't even think I looked at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not really a game.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah, dude.
What do those radio commercials say? They're like, "You millennials don't know anything about the past."
Yes.
True with strategy guides.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so.
Strategy guides still exist. You can get them. I think they had one for Blackout.
In digital.
They had a strategy guide for Black
Prima
Ops.
Guides or whatever.
For Prima, yeah. They had a Prima guide for Black Ops, what, 3?
3 probably. I think
Stop
they have
it,
one
dude.
for World War II.
Stop it.
Okay, let me send you a link.
Yeah, please do. Because that's such a waste of money. Who would get a strategy guide for a shooter like that? Like, all right, well, you need to just like go through the game and naturally you'll just win. Like, it's not even like that difficult, Anyway, let's move on. But if if anybody watching the podcast has any thoughts about Spider-Man now that it's been out a week, definitely let us know. And I'm sure, in the future when New Game Plus comes out, which they've already announced, and when the DLC comes out, we're definitely gonna return to this game because it is pretty damn good. All right, next up, we have final thoughts here on the Battlefield 5. Oh, don't send it on Discord, dude. I can't open it while we're streaming. Oh, actually, maybe I can.
It's a very long link. I want to put it on.
Yeah, it is. Before we get to Battlefield, I got to see this. I'm just going to type it into Best Buy. So this is what Call of Duty World War II Prima Guide. Let me see this.
$10.
Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. Dude, they have a collector's edition guide for $35.99, right? It's a collector's edition Prima guide at Best Buy. And it has 4.7 out of 5-star review. You gotta be kidding me. Oh yeah, there's the $10 one right there. Jesus, wow. What the hell do you need that for? How many pages is that? Like 5?
Probably one. Use left trigger to aim, right trigger to shoot, and play the fucking objective.
Yeah, right. Oh my god. All right. Anyway, so Battlefield 5, the beta is now over. Pretty long beta. That was like what? If you had the early access, it was easily a week, if not more. Yeah, a week. So, needless to say, we got to play a ton. I think I got to like level 24, 25, something like that. I know Assassin got to like maybe like 35. What did you get to?
I think it was in the 30s, but I don't even know what the level cap was. Like, I don't even know if there was one.
I don't even know if there was one because we played so much, and it was like, the leveling up is so slow in that game. I don't know what's going to be in the final game, but I feel like, well, I mean, in Battlefield games, it kind of is on the slower side compared to Call of Duty, obviously, but it's, I feel like the leveling up in this one was so slow. I feel like we played so much, and it just, it just took so long to level up. But anyway, we played a ton. No Clown's got his feet wet in some Battlefield 5 as well, so we all got a chance to play it a good amount, and I will just say, last week we were talking about this beta, and I was saying that I thought Battlefield 1 was, substantially better. I still think it's better, but it is much, much closer. I think Battlefield 5 has a lot of rewarding aspects to the game. I think there's a lot of mechanics that work extremely well and are welcome changes to the franchise. I am liking the fact that you can revive anyone in your squad. I do like that because that's come in the clutch a lot, and it makes sense if you're kind of like a tight-knit community that you'd be able to, be in squad gameplay. I think that makes sense that you'd be able to revive. And of course, the meta can revive too, and revives faster, but it can also revive people outside of the squad. I like that. The gunplay is excellent for the most part. Obviously, there are some issues with gun balancing. But in what beta is there not, right? But yeah. I think the visuals are excellent. Digital Foundry came out with a video, said it was on the X. It's gets down to it's dynamic resolution. It is on both X and Pro, and it's close to like 85-90% of what 4K is, and the Pro is right behind that at around 70 to 80% of 4K a majority of the time. So those numbers are very good. Obviously, the game looks great. Anyway, in terms of final beta thoughts, I think I will, I didn't expect this topic to like go too long, but I just want to, because I know we talked about it last week a lot, but I will say, I think that, Stickfig is saying in the chat, he likes the map design, lots of choke points. I like the map design, to a point. I think that, that snow map, Navik or whatever it's called, I think that map was, not very good on, either mode. Honestly, I think it looked good, but I thought neither mode was it like typical Battlefield kind of map. So I wasn't really too big of a fan of that. But Rotterdam I liked very much on Conquest. I thought that map was excellent. So map design, yeah, pretty good overall, but nothing too, revolutionary, I don't think. But other than like weapon damages and gadget damages, I think the game is extremely solid.
Yep.
But, so
very good.
What did you?
Very good beta.
Yeah.
And I think I warmed up to the tanks quite a bit. I know when we were in Narvik that when I was with you guys and I was in the tank, like we totally just owned the top half of the server because they couldn't do anything. I love that because the tanks are just they just feel satisfying when you're getting kills.
Yeah. No, I mean,
so
I think that in past Battlefield games there has been a lost that getting a kill is like a lost kind of satisfaction versus other games. Like I feel like when I'm playing like Black Ops 3 or Black Ops 4 and I get a kill, I'm like, yeah, that was satisfying. That was good. Like the pop up is good. There's a lot of like little things that happen that make you feel good about that kill. Whereas in past Battlefield games, it kind of just like pops up and you're like, all right, whatever. Battlefield 4, I think, was a main offender of that. Battlefield 3, I think it was good. Battlefield 1, I think it was kind of subdued, but in this it's like that pop-up comes up, the noise associated with it, like the animations, a lot of the time you get a headshot, like the cap pops off and all that stuff. Like it's extremely satisfying. And granted, I think the time to kill is a little on the quick side. I agree with you, Assassin. I think it's pretty satisfying.
Yep.
But either of you have any other kind of final thoughts before we move on? I think we talked about it a ton last week because we had played it and it was fresh. But has anything like changed in your guys' mind about anything in the game, or?
Nothing's really changed. I mean, the game, like what we said last week. I mean, it was pretty much what I think this week, except the tanks, because I ran more tank games than I did last week. But I mean, other than the horrible communication between DICE, I think the game was good.
Mm-hmm. Clowns, got anything on Battlefield 5? I know you didn't play as much, but I think you played a decent amount for a few days there, no?
Yeah, I think it's a great game, but I think, with Blackout coming and Call of Duty, I think people are going to rather play Call of Duty over Battlefield, so I think Battlefield's going to hits on that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of like a little bit of a subtopic that we had for Battlefield 5. Like, has DICE done enough to kind of, make up for the fact that, it hasn't been advertising well? We'll get into this a little later about how DICE and Treyarch have differed in like their treatment of betas in particular. But, I think all the buzz is around Call of Duty right now, especially with that Blackout beta coming out and being so good. We'll get into that in just a little bit on how good Blackout is. But do you think DICE has done enough during this beta, advertising this beta, like getting the word out there to kind of make up for, the missteps that we talked about in terms of advertising, like to get the word out there to show that the game is good? Or do you think they still haven't done enough and that, maybe they're going to need like another beta, maybe for the Battle Royale mode, maybe for other modes they have to kind of still push the message? What do you guys think?
They need one for the Battle Royale with the high praise of Blackout going on right now. Yeah, Battlefield 1, or not Battlefield 1, well, Battlefield 5 has a Battle Royale. People are going to forget Battlefield 5 even exists, at least between now and probably to the end of October until Red Dead launches. And they need to market better. Like, during the whole beta, like, they could have marketed so much. And they rarely did. Like, they had a tournament, I guess, with a bunch of like YouTubers and stuff, and like that was fine. But I think I heard about it once, and I guess they discussed the beta a little bit in there, and I didn't even know that they were doing that. Like, and I look at these social media places, especially like Battlefield and Dice, and like I didn't even know that they were going to just talk about the beta. I thought they were just going to have like this little competition, and stuff. And like their just messaging is just awful.
Yeah. I mean, the messaging has been extremely poor, but I think this is something in the right direction. I think this was kind of shocking to a little bit of the Battlefield diehard community, because Battlefield fans were not used to stuff like, squad revives. We're not used to stuff like the guns handling the way they handle, which I think is for the better. But they weren't used to stuff like anti-tank measures being like essentially worthless for the most part. They weren't used to they weren't used to the classes being organized the way they were, and not being able to change one of your gadgets and stuff like that. Now, granted, that may change in the full game. We don't really know, but at this point in time, you're led to believe what you play in the beta. That's kind of like what hurt Titanfall 2, right? And we saw what happened with that game. That game totally underperformed for how good it was, and totally missed the mark on projections by EA, even though that game was extremely solid. Yeah, I think they have some more work ahead of them. That's the thing. I think, a lot of people are against EA. I'm seeing like EA boo in the chat from Supersonic Station. I'm seeing Saltiest Gaming in the chat saying he's not going to play the game until he comes to EA Access. Even though it's a good game, I think a lot of people are, out right now on EA, and it's kind of like translating to Battlefield, and then, DICE isn't doing enough to make up for that, to kind of say, hey, we're the white swan here amongst the dirt here at EA. Like, everyone's so down on EA, and then you have Battlefield games, which time and time again are so great, but a lot of people are gonna skip on this. But anyway, Clowns, what do you think? Do you think DICE has done enough, or you think they're kind of still a sinking ship here? I know at one point you thought that this was going to spell the end of Battlefield, essentially, but and EA was in real trouble. But are you feeling any better about it after the beta, or what?
Well, I don't know if I think EA's in real trouble, but I think DICE could be in trouble itself. I mean, if this game doesn't take off the way that EA wants, EA could just dump DICE and get somebody else to do it, which I think they should have done a long time ago. I mean, DICE has had tons of bugs, tons of glitches. They had a ridiculously failed launch for Battlefield 4. I mean, that was terrible. It was probably like the worst launch in history. I don't know how well this one's going to do. It's coming up against a blockbuster like this, COD with Blackout. So it's really hard to say, man. You're going to have your diehards like Assassin who are going to go in and buy the $3,000 server day one, for like 4 years. But everybody else out there, casuals, they're not going to go to Battlefield right now. They're going to go to Blackout. And then you have those guys that are always on the line because they get bored of Battlefield. They go to COD back and forth or another FPS. And I think those guys are going to stay on COD for a good while before they dive into Battlefield 5 this time around.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think COD this time around is just so approachable and is so. I think it's actually pretty damn good, and the delay, and there's just so many factors working kind of against EA. And I know in a previous episode, I'm just reading Salty's chat comment here that says I can tell you how it'll do. R.I.P. And I, I think that's the sentiment around with a lot of people. Like, the servers are going to be populated. Don't worry about that. So if you're going to get the game, you'll worry that a lot of people are out in the game, and the servers.
Wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute, Frono. I know you said don't worry, they're going to be populated, but can you connect to them? That's the question. Are they going to show up in the server browser, or is Assassin like he had to look through the server browser and look for the specific number? To actually show up. I mean, it takes a while. Sometimes they don't show up.
Yeah, like, I feel like, and Assassin, correct me on this if you think otherwise or counter this, but I think at the beginning of the beta, the connectivity was so much, like, not at the very beginning, but like the first, like, you know, the second or third day, like, I felt like connectivity to the servers was like not an issue whatsoever. And then like the last 2 days of the beta, it was like a mess.
Yeah, it was definitely a mess. I don't know if like more people were like getting on the beta because it was open, so
Right.
maybe people were checking it out. But yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah. No, and Clowns is right. Like, Battlefield 1 is, on console at least, for connecting as a party, is like a little bit of a shit show. Joining game, like, sometimes you can't even join off your friends list. Like, it'll let you join for some people and not for others, and they don't really tell you what's wrong, like if there's a NAT problem or what, or here, you know, what really is the issue. But they gotta polish this thing significantly. I mean, look at Call of Duty. Like, we'll get into that right now. Let me just switch the slide here. The Blackout beta, right? And Salty says, and Salty's Gaming in the YouTube chat, he says the Blackout beta was the final nail in the coffin. And Supersonic Station saying, everyone's saying Blackout is good. Well, everyone's saying it's good for a reason, because it's freaking good. It's really good. Yeah, and you get something like that. You get this experience. They've never done Battle Royale before. They've never done this before. And then they put out something.
Actually, COD Online has a Battle Royale.
Okay, well, COD Online is in like the Chinese thing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Wow.
Well, I mean, it is Call of Duty. Like,
I'm sure.
I don't want to be that guy who,
okay.
corrects you.
All right, no, fair enough. Please, listen, please correct me. I mean, that is a fair point. But, I mean, I'm not sure necessarily, like, Treyarch is bringing over any, like, COD China people to help them out with Battle Royale. I mean, maybe they are.
Raven made the Battle Royale, COD Online.
No shit, really? Okay, all right, fair enough.
And, well, shout out to my Wisconsin brothers. Just saying.
There you go.
Based in Madison.
There you go.
But they are also helping with Blackout.
Okay. All right. So they have a little bit of experience here and there, right? They have a little bit. I can't say none. But here they go. They put this thing out. It's great. Instantly, like next day or like 2 days later, I can't remember if it was next day or 2 days later, they up the player count to 88. And they make next day, and they make tweaks here and there. Battlefield 5 beta, it's on for a week. No tweaks, nothing. At least they didn't say anything. Maybe they did like some server side stuff, what have you. But here's Treyarch, and they're making huge strides in coming out with a beta that's awesome and a reason to buy Call of Duty. The game's coming out a month beforehand, and it's making people forget. Where are all those people bitching that there's no single player? Where are all those people saying, "Oh, I'm boycotting COD because there's no campaign"? You know where they're at? They're converted. It's like the church of Treyarch, and up there is Vanderhaar as the preacher in his suit, in his garb there, and being like, "Amen, brothers." Like, here's this game, and it is now converted. All of you people. And I think that essentially, this is like a huge splash in the Battle Royale pond. Maybe I'm like hyperbolizing it and making this as a bigger thing than it is, but I'm gonna say I'm thinking that this is like just the beginning of the end for PUBG. This game.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the article, but PUBG, I forget, it was either the viewer count or player count hasn't dropped down past 1 million since the game is launched.
Yeah.
And when the beta finally launched for Blackout, it dropped under 1 million.
No kidding. Wow. And that's not even, well, is that just for Xbox or is that for PC or both, or that number? Because it's not, because the Blackout thing isn't even live for PC yet, right?
Well, it might have been just viewer count then on Twitch. But I mean, I think even the player unknown himself, like, I don't think he was expecting it. He tweeted some out to like Treyarch. Like, I think he was truly surprised.
Right. I mean, for all the shit that PUBG gets about, playability, and it's, crazy expensive in terms of resources on a computer or on Xbox or whatever, like, as much hate as it gets for that, that is the giant that needed to be taken down. And like, you had Fortnite, they're kind of taking up that spot, but Fortnite is like arcadey, Fortnite isn't like, Fortnite, if you're, the best Bob the Builder, you can win the match. It's not like it's not like it's simple. You know, I'm not saying that. Fortnite does require some skill, but there are other aspects other than gunplay that will help you out significantly. Whereas in PUBG and with Blackout, like gunplay is key, and I think Blackout just does it better. Simple as that. I just think it's more fluid, and I think it's, you know, more natural, more approachable for people who may not be into the battle royale crowd. You know, like this is capturing the people that aren't there. It's taking people away from PUBG, but it's also capturing people that don't play battle royale games. You know.
Yeah, it feels like it's more like in the middle. Like if Fortnite's like super casual, and then like PUBG is like,
like Die Hard,
not
yeah,
a simulator, but like Die Hard, and then you got like Blackout, where you have like aspects of PUBG in there with like the different ammos and stuff, but then you got like an easy inventory system that you can easy to manage and stuff, like Fortnite.
yeah.
And then they just came together, and it just works out.
Yeah, let me go to the chat real quick because there's a lot of comments on this. Salty, well, kind of reflecting back to the Battlefield thing. Salty saying if EA really wanted to save Battlefield 5, they would delay it until summer. I'm not sure they'll even do it, but at least they'll give it a shot. I'm inclined to believe that now after playing this Blackout thing. Like, I thought the delay was okay. I didn't think it was that big of a deal for Battlefield, but after playing this Blackout, like, I thought that Call of Duty was kind of like, I wasn't necessarily with Supersonic Station on this because I see him in the chat saying he's going to pass because it doesn't have the campaign, but I know there were a lot of people that were in that camp, and I feel like now with this Blackout thing being so good, a lot of those people have converted into getting this again. I think it's just going to sell extremely well, and then people aren't going to want to go over to Battlefield 5 like if they're on the fence. The diehards are going to get Battlefield, but Clowns is right. The people in the chat, you're right. It's not looking good for Battlefield in this point. And Battlefield is a good game. Like that, Battlefield 5 is an excellent game. Battlefield 1 is like one of the best shooters of all time, in my opinion. And it's like this is just like what Salty said. It's a nail in the coffin. This thing is just so this Blackout is so good that it's just gonna make people forget about Battlefield.
Yep.
All right, Clowns. Your thoughts on this Blackout thing? I know you've played it quite a bit.
I think Blackout's amazing. It's my favorite battle royale game to date right now. I think it's like, I wouldn't say it's as smooth as Fortnite, but I'm gonna say that I have a lot more fun on Blackout than Fortnite. I think that they hit a perfect balance where it's not overly complicated like PUBG, and it's not buggy like PUBG, but it's more simple than Fortnite. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think the game's so balanced that anybody could just pick up, play, and win. I don't think you need to be a battle royale expert. You don't need to necessarily worry about, hiding in buildings or strats or anything. I mean, me and Assassin just won by shooting people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only real strategy that people have been doing is getting level 3 armor. I think that's the only thing broken
right
in this entire beta, because you can take, I think people counted it, like up close, you could take 15 shots and still live, and still have armor left.
Yeah, that's a lot for a Call of Duty game. And I mean, that's the thing. Like in every beta, there'll be something that is exploited. Like no matter what it is just going to be something that is exploited. And I like that they're doing this to like feel that out. And I like how responsive Treyarch's been, and we'll get into that a little more in just a second. But I feel like Treyarch, has just shown with the last beta and with this one, that they are just dedicated to making positive change and to, testing out with a wide group of people of different skill levels and of different regions and of different backgrounds and what have you, and just ironing this thing out for the good of everyone, And correct me if I'm wrong, Assassin, but didn't Treyarch kind of already address the issue with the Armor 3?
They don't have fixes, but they plan to put out a fix for armor tomorrow. Like, I think they were testing or making some fix. I think started the first day the beta was out.
Yeah,
gonna put it into the game today. So tomorrow, I think they said it's gonna be out.
and that's the nice thing with some of these battle royale games, and with Treyarch in particular, the way they've talked is that they're just going to be able to make like server side changes. They're going to be able to make changes, quickly like that because they've built an infrastructure to do that. Where maybe Battlefield just doesn't have that infrastructure. Maybe they just can't flip a switch like that. Like Treyarch has kind of, built the ability to do that. I mean, Fortnite does it too. It's like Epic had that kind of contingency plan in place in case things got out of hand. And look at the updates they've done. I mean, they've made a million changes to stuff like shotguns and snipers and assault rifles and how they handle and everything. And it's like, they just push this update and it's done. It's like everyone kind of has to update their game and whatnot, depending on what the update is. But with Call of Duty, I know Treyarch has been talking a lot about, people don't necessarily need to even update their game. Like, how many times you log into Call of Duty, if you're a Call of Duty player, you'll log in, it'll be like, version has been updated, restarting the game now. And it's like not a download through Xbox or through PlayStation or whatever. It's just a kind of a version upgrade or whatever, and there's changes here and there,
I think they rarely update like their game like with a client patch. I think World War II does it like every month. I think once every month. And then, a server update or whatever, the one you have to download in a game, they probably do one like every week.
Right.
Maybe every other week. I don't know. I haven't played that game for a while, so I'm not too sure.
Yeah. No, Blackout is excellent. Blackout is excellent. Like, I cannot stress enough how well they executed this and how easily it was for them to just capture an audience because everyone was interested because of the way they advertised, unlike what EA's done, unlike what DICE has done, the way they advertised, the live streams, we were watching the live stream, or I wasn't watching it, but Assassin was watching it, kind of giving us the play-by-play. And what was this, like a couple weeks at this point? They had, or like a week ago, it was like fairly recently.
Yeah, they had it on Friday.
Yeah, so it was like
Spider-Man Day.
On Spider-Man Day, like a week ago, they had the live stream and they didn't play a game. And I was like, why didn't they play a game? Like, I thought that they would show the game off. But not playing a game just built anticipation for this thing more. Like, people logged on to check it out because they didn't show the gameplay. Like, maybe if they showed the gameplay, somebody would watch that and be like, oh, whatever. Like, that doesn't look that great, whatever, right? And then, but on the flip side, it made people download it. Made people try it out if you had a key or whatever. And it got a lot of people into it, man. Like, honestly, I mean, I was interested in the Blackout thing, but I wasn't interested enough to like seek it out. It's kind of like zombies, right? Like, I'm interested in the zombies mode, but I don't log on and say, oh, I'm gonna play some zombies. Like, I hardly ever do that. Because, like, I just fall into the pattern of going into, like, Team Deathmatch or like, Kill Confirmed or Domination or Search and Destroy, like, the usual playlists I've become accustomed to over the years for Call of Duty. Now, Blackout's a completely new thing. Battle Royale is trendy. Like, they just executed this perfectly, and they're getting it out before Battlefield. So it's like, when it comes to first-person shooter Battle Royale games that are mainstream, this is going to be the one that comes out on top, without question. And I haven't even seen anything about the Battlefield one. Or the Battlefield 5 version,
Yeah.
But anyway, so last kind of topic, but kind of melds these two together. It's kind of like a DICE versus Treyarch handling of betas and handling of advertising. I say beta showdown, but let's just throw the advertising stuff in too, and the way they've kind of portrayed each of their games in this critical year. Like Call of Duty, this is a critical year. World War II, sold well, but they moved to an era. Call of Duty moved to an era where no campaign. A lot of people are saying, this is the year they have to show something that knocks our socks off, or else it's gonna, it's just gonna spiral out of control for Call of Duty. In terms of DICE, like DICE is on that bi-yearly schedule where Battlefield 1 came out a couple years ago, was excellent. Battlefield 4 came out, and other than those bugs that Clowns talked about that happened at the beginning, which were definitely true, other than those, like Battlefield 4 was good. Hardline, Not so much, but the game got delayed. It took a huge divergence from the usual like Battlefield formula. It was a good risk, and I enjoyed it. And I would like to actually go back to it and play again if the servers were populated. But so this is a critical year for both. And I think both have come out with a beta, and I think the handling has just been night and day, man. I think Treyarch is just, we kind of alluded to it this entire time, but Treyarch has just handled it so much better with the updates, with the transparency, with the messages on Twitter, talking about the beta. And we're playing the beta of Battlefield like the day before, I think it was like the day before it went down this week. So like the 10th or whatever. And we're playing it, and Assassin's like, do you realize, dude, that DICE has still said nothing about this beta throughout the entire time? Like, they've advertised it by being like, oh, the beta's out, go check it out, but they've said nothing about like patches or what they've changed, or if they're planning on changing anything for the beta, like releasing new features. And whereas with Infinity Ward, I feel like every like 3 hours you see something. It's like, it's totally different. And people, and with social media being so huge these days, it's just like, how can DICE not capitalize the way that Treyarch has? I don't know. What do you think, Assassin? Like the handling of this?
I think Treyarch has set a standard for betas. I think they have done a superb job. Making out. They didn't have one yesterday. I think that was the first time ever. But like just coming out day one of the beta, be like, people are like, oh, the picking up stuff was too slow. I want, and you have to look way too low at the ground to pick stuff up. And that was right in the article. They had changed the next day. The armor, everyone hates level 3 armor. People think level 1 and 2 is just fine. What are they doing? They're already making it. They put out, I think, day one of the beta, that their first post. They have a change that's going to probably be coming, not today, but tomorrow. And then you go to DICE, you hear crickets, and then they're like, oh, we're going to give devs our take over our Twitter, and then you see analytics of where recons go on Rotterdam. I'm like, frankly, I just don't give a damn where people are going, and like, it's good for them to see, where, these people are going. Maybe they could build more, stuff for, to bring cover or whatnot, and, change maybe the layout a little bit. But for, people like us who are just playing the game, we don't care. We don't care if there's a recon that the recons love to be on the train. Like, obviously they do.
No shit.
It makes
like,
sense.
Yeah,
the highest point, entire map, and it stretches across the whole map. Like, if they're not up there, then there's something wrong.
Right.
Like stuff like that. Like I think one of them tweeted out today, like, oh, the squad abilities, like the V1 rocket, the JB2 rocket, like, or the supplies, or the tank. Like, if the squad leader uses that, like, you don't get any points. They're changing that, so you get the whole squad gets those points. Like, that's nice, but what about all the problems people are talking about? Like, give us, like, if you're not going to say it every day, like, give us every 2 days, like, of just known issues. Like, just acknowledge that you know it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to change that in the beta, just acknowledge it.
Yeah.
They're just not doing that. Like, just disgusting.
Yeah, it's a major problem that people aren't getting assurance that the company knows that there are issues. It's like, you already are in deep, like, kind of deep shit because you're delaying the game. So obviously, it's not to where you thought it was. You've shown this off at, I think, 3 cons so far. They've had this game playable. Yeah. I think 3. I could be wrong on that. It's either 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure it's 3 cons that they've had this playable at. They've gotten feedback. They let this game go to alpha with, like, influencers, quote unquote, and not, like, necessarily diehards. Okay, so they could have probably implemented a lot of these changes prior, but they, of course, had to have, like, somebody, anyone with like 40,000 subscribers, like, you're gonna get the game. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just theorizing. Like, they put their we've talked about this before on the podcast, but they put their eggs in the YouTube free and Twitch free advertising basket. Like they're letting content creators take over for stuff that Treyarch is just doing as a company. You know, it's just transparency, is acknowledgement that there are issues. They're going to be fixed. We're going to hit these deadlines. We want you to test it out during the beta. We have a fix ready like very quickly, and we want you to test it out, see if you like it a little bit better. And, people really appreciate that. And I think everyone that games appreciates that. But I don't know, Clowns, what do you think in this battle? Like, do you agree with what's been said, or do you have something else on it?
I'm sorry, guys. There was so much going on.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, Clowns is. We're like, all right, we're gonna do the podcast at 5:30 on Wednesday because I've got a birthday thing that I'm doing, and everyone's like, yeah, that's like totally fine. Like usually nothing's going on. And then like, Clowns is like, oh man, my wife had brought over like my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law's here, and like all these people just happen to show up at the last minute. I'm like, fuck, man, like life just goes on around us. You know what I mean? It sucks, but
yep.
But anyway, but I don't know, like in terms of Treyarch versus DICE, like I wouldn't necessarily think that it was a big deal, because DICE has such a good rapport. Like I think Battlefield games are just normally extremely well received at this point, whereas with Treyarch, like they had to prove something because Call of Duty has been kind of on a downward trend. I mean, World War II did, pretty well. Like people accepted that pretty well because it went to boots on the ground and people were sick about the future, sick of the futuristic stuff. So I think Call of Duty had more to kind of like crawl back from than Battlefield, because Battlefield 1 was just so excellent and really like was a showstopper when they revealed it. Because the setting, the graphics, the lighting, like everything was just so vastly improved. And Battlefield was kind of riding that high, and that's when these companies kind of get in trouble. Like you can't rest on your laurels if you've accomplished something big, especially when your competition, your direct competition, is about to upstage you significantly. Like that's the thing with DICE. Like I feel like Treyarch has been overly exposed on what's going on with this Black Ops 4, right? DICE could have totally capitalized on the fact that Black Ops didn't have a campaign. And what do? They don't say shit. And then Treyarch has another live stream about the game. They announce a bunch of other things, maps, gameplay, Blackout, all that kind of stuff. They have another live stream. What does DICE do? Leave it up to friggin' YouTubers to do the heavy lifting, right? Then the Black Ops beta comes out a month ago at this point for the multiplayer. Everyone plays that. The opinions are extremely mixed about that beta. Does DICE capitalize on that by saying, oh, we've got a Battlefield 5 beta coming out and it's everything you expect it to be and it's going to be great, blah, 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 and talking about all the good things? Nope, nothing. I literally forgot the day that the beta was coming out. Like, that's how little has been said on it. I literally forgot about the day. And
they brought it out, like, I think at the end of July or August, my bad, they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a beta. It's like in 2 weeks. Like,
right.
I think we knew like Call of Duty's for like a month, and they had like a trailer like maybe every 2 weeks or something, like to get you hyped. And like you said, didn't say anything. I think the only thing they said between before the beta and the reveal, and then the few days before the beta, they brought out an article be like, what we've learned from the alphas. Like, thanks. Like, you needed that, but it would have been nice to have like maybe one between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, and then between 2 and then the beta, and then said more. Like a lot of if the developers don't say what they're bringing and stuff, people are just gonna stop playing the game. Like I know with Sledgehammer, like people were complaining so much. Same thing with Star Wars Battlefront 2. People complained so much they didn't know what was coming. They had all these feedbacks. If it was good or positive, it was sent Sledgehammer's way, and they said nothing. And now Sledgehammer has a weekly post. They started a weekly stream. I think now Battlefront 2 has a weekly transmission now, talking about stuff. So Dice Stockholm is totally fine, but I think Dice LA is doing Battlefield 5 with Stockholm or something.
Right. Good point.
They're just quiet. Learn from Sledgehammer. I feel like if Sledgehammer didn't learn, same thing with Dice Stockholm. Or just going with Call of Duty. Treyarch, I don't think would have been like this. I feel like with Sledgehammer doing this thing now, it was a wake up call.
Yeah.
For Call of Duty in general.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that, and it's a good point about the kind of divide between Dice Stockholm versus Dice LA. It's Battlefront had a huge hole to crawl from, and they were able to successfully kind of do it, but then they had the misstep with the microtransactions, right? And then that kind of took them back a little bit, but then they kind of crawled out from that, and now the game is kind of gaining a little bit of popularity, and they're talking about updates and content and all this and getting people excited again. And I've seen a lot of excitement again on Twitter. Meanwhile, Battlefield 5, they have a great product, and they're just going to let it fizzle. They're just going to delay the game, which is fine. Delay the game if it's not ready, but they're going to delay the game, and then they're going to let their competition smoke them on the betas and smoke them on the publicity. The time is now. I mean, it's September 12th. The game comes out in 2 months. You need to generate hype now, and to think that the game is going to come out a month from now, please.
Well, and it's funny, because Blackout, just came out, and I think a few days before Blackout started, getting, probably a bunch more hype and stuff. DICE comes out and be like, Firestorm's coming out. It's going to be this. It's made by Criterion. If you pre-order, you can get an outfit for Firestorm, or just your other multiplayer experiences. And they bring out all this, and then Blackout comes out, and then just Firestorm just sizzles out and dies.
Yeah. Yep.
Shown gameplay, you should say there's going to be a beta or something. They were so into this Firestorm battle royale, and then
so much for that.
Comes out and it's gone.
Yeah, wait a second. The competition has a good one? No, shit. What are we gonna do? That's the feeling I get from them. You know what I mean? It's that's not a warm feeling for Battlefield fans to get when the competition is showing all this good stuff, and EA is essentially, or Dice LA, or whoever you want to put the blame on, is going back to the drawing board. You know what I mean? It's that's what it's like. It's they put out a good beta. They have good press about Black Ops 4. The Blackout beta is extremely successful, and here's EA coming to announce that we're delaying the game. That, that doesn't exactly bode confidence.
Yeah, and I think someone asked about Firestorm to one of the devs. When the DICE takeover.
Oh my god! I would love to hear what they said.
And I think someone said something about how can you have 64 players on the biggest map ever if Call of Duty can put 80 players on for maps that they're usually made for small. And I forget the exact wording, but I think they're going back to the drawing board on that, because I think they were oh shit. I think they weren't.
They weren't.
I really think
88
DICE
players,
or Criterion was. Yeah, I don't think they were prepared at all for 80. I think they're probably prepared for 50.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They're oh, Call of Duty hasn't done any more than 20. What is Ground War 18?
18 and the headquarters is 48. And
the headquarters, yeah, the headquarters, exactly. So they're like banking on what the headquarters is gonna be. They're like, oh, shit. I mean, the headquarters can't even get over 48. We're probably gold at 64, and then boom, here comes 80. Like, you know, battle royale games with low player counts, like Darwin Project and stuff, they don't do well. Like, the whole point of battle royale is like, you know.
Well, with I think Dying Light, their battle royale is coming out soon, and I think it doesn't have many player count, but I from people that have played it, I heard it's really good.
Yeah, but okay. So in the battle royale in Dying Light, like, it's like it's an old class, you know, because you're also fighting against like zombies and stuff. It's not even like just PvP and that's it, you know. Yeah. So it's like there's other things that you have to worry about, and there are other games like that, like that Hunt Showdown game. Isn't that kind of like that?
I don't think it's more like a battle royale. I think it has battle royale concepts.
Yes.
But it's not a battle royale.
Right. Whereas here's DICE with their battle royale. They're gonna have 64 players, squads only. Like, wow, that's a real battle royale. Let me tell you.
Yeah, like the differences between Blackout and Firestorm. Like, Blackout doesn't seem tacked on. Right. Like, there's just like so much different. Like, there's some similarities and so much, you know, uniqueness of battle royale Blackout between other battle royales. Then you get fucking not Blackout, well, Firestorm, and it's pretty much because like what it sounds like, because with their grand operations, if it gets a stalemate on day 3, like you're pretty much playing battle royale. I feel like they just stopped and then just made it a little bit different and then put it there, and just it was tacked on because battle royale took off last year.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And the thing that's crazy about that is that Blackout feels like it was preconceived, like it wasn't necessarily tacked on, but I think Blackout carries a lot of aspects from like PubG and specifically from PubG. I think it carries a ton of aspects from that game, but because they did stuff differently, like the inventory, and because they like integrated the perks, and because there's a lot of gadgets and stuff like that, like it just feels so much more polished than just a tacked on thing. Whereas like in reality, I wouldn't be surprised at all if at some point in the future, like there's a tell-all kind of like blowing the whistle about this whole battle royale genre, like overload that we're getting once battle royale kind of like dies out, and somebody from Treyarch or Activision or somebody really connected just comes out and is just like, yeah, we decided to do that like after Fortnite came out. You know what I mean? Like if they just come out and say that, and it's like, wow, yeah, how does this feel that polished when, you know, they only did it after battle royale really took off? Like, there were battle royale games before PUBG, let's remember, but at the same time, it's like,
but it didn't really take off.
Right.
I think.
Right.
PUBG, you know, I think they had a beta and it just took off. Like, they had to put it in early access.
And who's necessarily to say that this would have been included if Fortnite didn't take off? Like, maybe if PUBG was still the king and was unopposed, maybe, you know, and there was no Fortnite, maybe no one takes on PUBG. Maybe PUBG just like sits in that genre and is the game of the genre, and that's it. And no one takes them on, even the big guys. Like, who knows? But I think the fact that like Fortnite was kind of the guinea pig in taking down PUBG, and has successfully done so, like the people see money in it, like a ton of money.
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling Blackout, like, I don't think they're gonna go loot boxes. I think they're gonna go Fortnite route.
Yeah.
And just have their microtransactions be extremely expensive. Because, you know, they see Fortnite, they can put out $20 skins and people
grab them, yeah.
You know, just turn a blind eye to it. Like, they're like, oh, $20, whatever.
Yep.
In fact, it's probably a more greedy system than I think of loot boxes.
Than loot boxes,
I don't pay for loot boxes, but, you know, you get everything. Well, sort of. You have a possibility of getting everything. On Fortnite, I mean, if you don't play the PvE, you're not going to get pretty much anything.
Right. Yep. So that's the state of affairs really between. I think we've beat that to death, but time will tell. I mean, when both games are finally out, we see how they're doing. When Blackout finally comes out, we see what kind of retention there is, because it's all well and good when the game's in beta and everyone's checking it out and everyone's loving it, but let's see how that converts over to purchases. I think in this case, if I would have predicted, I'd say it's gonna do well, but we'll see how many people actually put their money where their mouth is, right? And actually pick this thing up and play Blackout, and not just do what I do, and ignore zombies for like TDM, kill confirmed, search, and domination, stuff like that. But
well, they can even prove that they can even just change out the mode and just general like Fortnite, like an event, like not event, but a new mode for Blackout just went out today. Make it fast paced, like. I feel like they learned from Fortnite, and I think modes like 50v50 or well, it wouldn't work out with Blackout, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like modes like that, I think people would be interested on their their take. Yep.
I think the infrastructure is there to make those kind of changes very quickly, like we already described, and I think that's what we need nowadays. Like, people need refreshing new stuff to be quickly enacted and to garner interest and to be free. Like, it's not even about the money necessarily, but it's about, people getting stale at things quickly, even if things are good. Can you imagine like this generation of gamers in this position playing like NES games that lasted for like 35 minutes and we're done? Like, people would shit all over that stuff nowadays. But now you need such like constant simulation, and Battlefield, I just don't think they have the capacity to do that. I mean, of course, maybe they'll prove me wrong here, but Treyarch is just, and Call of Duty in general over the years has just really proven that, different playlists that they've added, like they add different kind of game modes, like that prop hunt bullshit that is stupid as hell, but I mean, at least they add that kind of game mode and keep things fresh. Or like I can't name like other game modes right off the top of my head, like Infected maybe, like it was in the same category back in the day. When they first introduced like Kill Confirmed, like they were just able to churn out over this stuff very quickly. And Battlefield in the past has added game modes, like Chain Link, I think is like one of my favorite game modes of any Battlefield game. And yet they do that with like a DLC drop. They don't necessarily just like flip a switch and that's on, and I think they just need to adapt and do stuff like that, or else they're going to be left in the dust. So in this,
we saw that a little bit with what was that mode? It was in the first DLC, Frontlines. Like they started adding it to the base game. Now it's a Battlefield 5, but
yeah, but when they first introduced that was in a DLC, like.
Yeah, and it just takes them forever, I feel like, to do anything. Like, yes, their maps are big and probably more complex than Call of Duty, but like, it took them for, I think, almost to the end of like Battlefield's like almost life cycle, Battlefield 1's life cycle, to implement on every base map.
Right.
Like, that's a long time for a mode.
Yeah, for one solitary mode. Like, it almost would have been more important. It almost would have done them better if they just had a new kind of mode or like a variation on an existing mode to make it feel fresh, and just like ditch the fact that it's not on every map, Like, even back in the Battlefield 3 or 4, when it was Chainlink Battlefield 3 or 4?
It was 4.
4, okay. Even back then, right? They were just like pumping out new stuff. And like each DLC had like 5 maps, whatever. It was still on that model, but at the same time, like, Chainlink was only on a few maps, okay, whatever. But then like they'd introduce another game mode, and that was only in a few maps, and I think that did okay. But at least they were like starting this flow of kind of pumping out new content on a very regular basis, and new game modes and new different ways to play. Whereas Battlefield, like, was still stuck in the same thing. Like, of course, there's that Grand Operations that they had in their beta, but like, truth be told, that's really just like a variation of Operations. It's like not even that divergent from stuff that's already been done. Whereas with, Call of Duty has done this with like, the Blackout thing, and with the last game with like War, like that kind of game mode was never in a Call of Duty before, and they introduced that, and that was refreshing and cool for a little bit. It's like, it's stuff like that. stuff like that they
Yeah.
need to start catching up to the competition about.
Well, hopefully with their Battlefield 5 DLC model, they can start pushing out content faster than before. I know Treyarch said that they're going to push out a bunch of free maps and DLC maps faster than ever before. So
Yeah. Let's hope, because that's
catch up.
that's the direction everything's going. But I mean, DICE has just been so freaking quiet. We have no idea. We're like just speculating, you know. Whereas with Treyarch, I feel like this game's coming out in a month, and I know like a lot about Black Ops 4, like a lot, like enough to get me interested in, say that I know enough about the game to get me to buy the game. Like, I'm gonna pre-order the game. I can't believe I can't believe I'm doing that, but I'm pre-ordering the game. Sadly for Xbox, but
Sadly, come on.
yeah, well, I think it plays better on PS4, but that's for another show. But
I mean, the other way around, when those 360, like the PS3 version was, I mean, it still ran, but I mean, it's pretty much the same way where, Microsoft paid Activision money, 360 is going to get the better version.
Right.
Now, Sony's paying Activision a shit ton of money for a bunch of stuff.
Right.
PS4 is going to get the better version. So.
Right. I don't know what it is, and I don't think it's the controller, because I'm not a huge fan of the DualShock 4. It's probably my favorite PlayStation controller of all time, but that's not really saying much. I much prefer the Xbox controller, but there's just something about that game that I feel like plays better on PlayStation. I can't put my finger on it, but it could be what
people try harder on Xbox.
On Xbox, I mean, maybe I just don't play as well, but I don't know.
You just have to be good. Need a tutor.
I need to get myself a gaming tutor, I think. But all right, we're going to end it at that, I think, for the podcast. Surprised that we got an hour and 30-minute podcast out of so few topics, but they were juicy ones, and I think it's stuff that not a lot of people are addressing, and I think it just needs to be addressed because, I don't think the fact that Battlefield's going to do poorly is just because the game is very similar to Battlefield 1. Like, I see a lot of people talking about that. It's like, oh, the game's not going to do well because it's essentially the same thing. Like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 are the same. I think that has nothing to do with why it's not doing well. I think it's all because of the pre-launch actions. And I think that if DICE wanted to, they could still create as much buzz as they did for Battlefield 1, or even more. But I mean, I think that was an important topic, and I'm glad we visited that in that capacity. If anyone in the comment section, or if you want to hit us up on Twitter, of course, 4GwQPodcast is our Twitter handle, but our our individual handles have been cycling. Definitely follow us and hit us up on those platforms to talk about this more, because we want to talk about this. This is like a very important thing in this day and age. I think it's not just like you go to the local store and pick up a game and put it in your system anymore. Like, there's a lot more behind this kind of stuff. The messaging is huge, and so I'm glad we got to that. And of course, Spider-Man, excellent game. We could talk about that for an entire podcast. I think that's goes without saying, but we will wait to talk about that more when the new Game Plus comes out, when the new DLC comes out, and we'll eventually revisit that. But if you don't know where to find us, I'm sure you do since you're watching this, but if you don't, just search 4GwQuarters everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Twitter or 4GwQPodcast, but you can find us by searching 4GwQuarters. YouTube, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. Search us, find us, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We appreciate that, and we appreciate everyone coming to check out the podcast live or afterwards, whatever floats your boat. I know our schedule changes every once in a while, but appreciate you guys making the trek every week. So for that, we will see you guys later. Hopefully Clowns can get rid of some of his family so he can get back to gaming, but it doesn't look promising by this podcast. So we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye.